Time. It's a force that governs every moment of our lives, yet we often take it for granted until it starts slipping away. Whether it's the ticking of the clock in our daily routines or the pressing sense that the world is changing faster than we can keep up, one question looms larger than ever. How much time do we really have left? In a world of unprecedented challenges, climate crises, political instability, and the threat of nuclear war, this question has never been more urgent. Noam Chomsky, one of the world's most insightful thinkers, argues that humanity is running out of time. The window to change course is closing rapidly, and if we don't act now, the consequences could be catastrophic. So how much time do we have left to change our future? And what can we do before it's too late? In this video, we will delve into Chomsky's perspective on the challenges we face, the choices we must make, and the actions that could still save us from the brink of destruction. Chapter 1. Who is Noam Chomsky? Before we dive deeper into his insights, it's important to understand who Noam Chomsky is and why his voice carries such weight in discussions about global crises. Chomsky is a linguist, philosopher, political activist, and one of the most influential intellectuals of our time. He's widely regarded as the father of modern linguistics, revolutionizing our understanding of language and the human mind. However, it is his work as a social critic and political commentator that has made him a global figure. Over decades of writing, speaking, and activism, Chomsky has consistently challenged the political and economic powers that shape our world. He has spoken out against imperialism, corporate control, and the erosion of democracy, while advocating for social justice and human rights. Chomsky's critiques of mainstream media, the U.S. government, and multinational corporations have earned him both admiration and controversy. But beyond the controversies, his relentless pursuit of truth and his ability to distill complex global issues into clear, accessible arguments have made him a trusted voice on the most pressing issues facing humanity today. Chomsky's insights into climate change, nuclear threats, and the erosion of democratic freedoms have shaped public discourse and continue to serve as a wake-up call for those who are listening. Chapter 2. The Global Crisis. Environmental and existential threats. The climate crisis is not a problem of the distant future. It's the defining issue of our present. The damage we have already inflicted upon the planet is undeniable. From scorching heat waves in the summer to unprecedented wildfires ravaging forests across the globe, the effects of global warming are no longer something that can be ignored or brushed aside. As the natural world spirals into chaos, we are forced to confront the consequences of our own actions. In recent years, the consequences of unchecked industrialization and overconsumption have become starkly visible. The polar ice caps are melting at alarming rates. Glaciers, once considered permanent features of the landscape, are disappearing into the oceans. Coastal regions are experiencing more frequent flooding, and entire ecosystems are being wiped out at an unprecedented rate. The global temperature is rising, leading to extreme weather patterns, from devastating floods to severe droughts. Chomsky has consistently argued that the scientific community has been clear for decades. We are rapidly heading toward a point of no return. The climate emergency is not a hypothetical future threat. It's here. The window to prevent irreversible damage is rapidly closing, and the question, however, is not just about when the damage will occur. It's about what can still be done to mitigate it. In his writings and interviews, Chomsky has pointed out that the major obstacle to meaningful climate action is the same as it has always been: power. Governments, particularly those of wealthy nations, continue to prioritize the interests of powerful corporations over the survival of the planet. Fossil fuel industries continue to operate without the accountability they need, and economic interests continue to supersede ecological concerns. Governments, instead of acting decisively, are trapped in cycles of complacency, influenced by lobbyists, campaign donors, and the grip of multinational corporations. Chomsky has criticized this failure to act, highlighting the gulf between the urgent needs of the environment and the political and economic structures that prevent progress. The world is at a crossroads. We are not simply dealing with political inertia. We are facing a global emergency that requires immediate action, and yet political will is still woefully inadequate. The Earth's ecosystems are fragile, and the longer we wait, the harder it will be to reverse the damage. However, Chomsky also points to something else: the immense power of the people across the globe. Movements for climate action are growing stronger by the day. Citizens, particularly youth movements, are demanding change, calling on governments to take action and stop catering to the fossil fuel industry. Activists are organizing in every corner of the world, pushing for cleaner energy, sustainable agriculture, and urgent policies to fight global warming. They are urging governments to adopt far-reaching reforms that will preserve the planet for future generations. From Greta Thunberg's Fridays for Fortune movement to grassroots organizations advocating for climate justice, these movements represent a clear message: the time is to act now. Despite the mounting pressure from these grassroots movements, political action remains slow, and many of the world's wealthiest nations continue to fall short of their commitments to reduce carbon emissions. Yet, even in the face of this resistance, there is a growing recognition that the time to act is now. Climate change doesn't wait for political negotiations. It is happening in real time, and every passing day makes it harder to reverse course. Chapter 3: The Nuclear Threat, a Looming Disaster. While the climate crisis may seem like the most urgent threat, it's not the only peril facing humanity. One of the most dangerous and overlooked threats to our survival is nuclear war. These weapons, designed for total annihilation, still exist in vast quantities, and their potential to destroy human civilization has not diminished. They are still in the hands of world powers, and their destructive potential remains as vast and terrifying as ever. The nuclear threat was first highlighted during the Cold War when the United States and the Soviet Union faced off in a dangerous arms race. Although the Cold War has ended, nuclear weapons remain a powerful force in global politics, with countries like the United States, Russia, China, and others maintaining stockpiles of these destructive devices. The sheer number of nuclear warheads worldwide still poses an immense risk. Chomsky has consistently warned that the threat of nuclear war is still very much alive. These weapons of mass destruction are not relics of the past. The Cold War may be over, but geopolitical tensions remain high, and nuclear weapons continue to shape global military strategy. They are still present in the arsenals of powerful nations, and their potential for total annihilation has not diminished. Chomsky points out that the risk of nuclear escalation remains a significant threat to global security. These weapons can be launched at a moment's notice, and once unleashed, their consequences would be catastrophic. The situation is made even more precarious by the rise of nuclear powers and the resurgence of military posturing between nuclear-armed nations. In regions like the Middle East, South Asia, and Eastern Europe, tensions are high, and the possibility of nuclear escalation is ever present. Chomsky emphasizes that nuclear weapons are actively shaping the present, and that the danger they represent is not just theoretical, it is real, and it is growing. Chomsky's message is clear: nuclear weapons still pose a dire threat to the future of humanity. The risk of a limited nuclear conflict is no longer unimaginable, and with technological failures, miscalculations, or geopolitical mistakes, the consequences could be catastrophic. The nuclear age is far from over, and the potential for disaster is only a trigger pull away. Chapter 4: The Erosion of Democracy, the Rise of Authoritarianism. While the existential crises of climate change and nuclear war pose immediate threats to our survival, there's another crisis slowly eroding the stability of nations: the rise of authoritarianism and the decay of democratic norms. Across the globe, political power is becoming increasingly concentrated in the hands of a few. From Hungary to Brazil, from the United States to Russia, we are seeing the rise of populist leaders who undermine democratic institutions, limit civil liberties, and stifle political opposition. Chomsky has been a vocal critic of the ways in which economic elites and powerful corporate interests have undermined democracy. The concentration of power in the hands of a few has created a society where the majority of citizens have little to no influence over the political process. In his view, the erosion of democracy goes hand in hand with the rise of inequality, a phenomenon that fuels political instability and divides societies. The wealthiest individuals and corporations have found ways to influence politics in ways that ordinary citizens cannot. Through massive corporate donations, lobbying, and media manipulation, these elites shape policies that benefit them at the expense of the broader public. As a result, The very foundations of democracy are being chipped away. Democratic processes are being weakened, and authoritarian leaders are finding it easier to consolidate power. In many countries, people are beginning to lose faith in their political systems. Practices like voter suppression, gerrymandering, and election interference have become increasingly common, undermining the democratic process. And when citizens lose trust in their governments, they become more valuable to the allure of authoritarian figures who promise quick, often dangerous solutions to complex problems. Chapter 5: Collective Action. Can we still change course? With the challenges we face mounting, it's easy to fall into despair. The problems seem too large, too entrenched, and too complex. But Chomsky's message is clear. While the stakes have never been higher, the potential for change is also greater than ever. Chomsky argues that real change can only come from collective action. The moments that have arisen in response to the climate crisis, economic inequality, and political corruption show that there is still hope. Ordinary people have the power to challenge the systems that perpetuate the status quo, and they're going to do so. From grassroots climate organizations to social justice movements demanding equitable systems, the energy for change is palpable. But the question remains, do we have the time to make this change? The clock is ticking, the crises we face are urgent, but Chomsky believes that it is not too late. The power to create change is in our hands, but it requires a collective effort. Individual actions combined into a unified movement that can force political leaders and corporations to take responsibility. So, how much time do we have left? The truth is, we don't have much time, but we still have time. The clock is ticking, and every moment we delay puts our future further out of reach. Will we continue to ignore the warnings and let time slip away, or will we rise to the challenge and act decisively to protect our planet, our societies, and future? The question is, will we act, or will we let time run out?